say, well, what is the story? You go, well, the story would be that after this event of ridicule, someone, an enemy, well, not an enemy, but somewhat a rival of Tony Stark, Justin Hammer, sees in him an opportunity to, to market Whiplash and to help and fund him, and then we would get a better looking Whiplash, the one that, would look like $1 million with Justin Hammer behind him. And the whole, that interested me when I started looking at it, going, wow, that doesn't sound like an Iron Man movie. It sounds like a Whiplash movie. It sounds like just like The Wrestler, where you're looking at it from the perspective of the character's name that they're going with is not just called Whiplash, is Ivan Vanko, but to look at it from Vanko's perspective, kind of like Rocky again, and see the rise of Vanko, but having joined Justin Hammer, who has his own agenda and is using him to, make Tony Stark look like, basically like a fool, and bankrupt him and hurt him and take over his company and just basically crush and destroy Tony Stark, which is something that, because he's so cynical and good-hearted and good, natured, Ivan doesn't see that and is being shaped and used, kind of like a Darth Sidious to a Lord Vader. He's being shaped and going through this, and that he's so likable that he's just being misled and being used to essentially become a vigilante. And that sounds like a pretty cool non-Iron Man movie. That sounds, to look at it from that perspective and skew it, that seems the kind of anti-hero. And that I was thinking, well, the Black Widow, I think when I was looking at it, I go, well, I think the Black Widow would come in the sense that she would assassinate Whiplash at the end of this movie, as opposed to being a very big presence, and she would assassinate him, and kill him, and that Tony Stark would have knowledge about this because he's with the Avengers, or not have had knowledge about it. And it's a very Godfather-esque, assassination hit that goes on, because they see that Justin Hammer and has been, that S.H.I.E.L.D. essentially puts a kill order on Justin Hammer and Whiplash, and of course Justin is finds out about it, gets to safety, but in time, but our beloved Ivan Vanko is vanquished and killed, and that would set Tony Stark off on a path to find, and possibly drinking, maybe murder, find this Black Widow. And that story does not sound like, and that's nothing really now, you go, it really doesn't have anything to do with War Machine, but it could set that up for a third part where maybe War Machine protects the Black Widow and is against, and that Tony Stark is, that sets up why Tony Stark has a kind of hatred in the beginning for S.H.I.E.L.D. because they assassinated and he had knowledge of, but he just didn't, he just didn't, he feels like he's responsible for the death of Whiplash, and now he's on a path to redeem himself, and of course S.H.I.E.L.D. goes against the fact that Tony Stark is now, that would set up a really cool Iron Man 3, where he's trying to, bring the Black Widow to justice, and she can't be brought to justice because it's S.H.I.E.L.D. and, she doesn't really exist, and there's no knowledge, and War Machine then would want to take him on, and, because they would bring him into S.H.I.E.L.D., and they would take Tony Stark out. So now I look at it and I go, okay, now that, from that story perspective, that's more, I'm going, okay, I like that. That's very character driven, It sets up a trilogy. It leads into the Avengers. It's a different take than what and that's just a bad guy fighting, him, and I go, that I can go with, is the Rocky villain story that leads to, tragedy. And those, I can set that up as a part one, part two, part three, and I can go with that. So getting that image, that is, of course, this is probably nothing of what we'll see in the Iron Man films, what's gonna Iron Man 2. But it's from looking at that image, I go, well, you see, I looked at it and went, that is an interesting aspect and an interesting place to go. And, just for speculating, what do you guys think about that? Is that something with, really good writing, really good, could this be cool? Because I was going at it, I didn't care about this, and now I go, well, now, I'm like, oh, now I see that it's important. You go, oh, Whiplash is not just somebody who's there to just kick Tony Stark's ass. He's somebody who shows him, like, that's a true hero. He's just went down the wrong, he just, kind of like, Mr. Incredible kicking away, Buddy, and he goes off to become Syndrome, but he never becomes Syndrome, he gets killed before. So that's more, that I can go with. That shows that why Tony Stark does as well, like, that's what is lost here. That's what's lost, is that by him being public and opening up, he brought out Ivan, and in a sense doomed him, kind of Doctor doomed him in a way, to go down this path and be killed, and that would lead to the depression, and that would force this Mickey Rourke to really make you care and empathize with Whiplash, and not just be someone that's there to, do really cool whip moves and beat a person up. You go, wow, that's interesting. You're right. You look at the wrestler and the way he emoted and the way that you go, that is more interesting. And yeah, have some action beats inside there, but show the heart in a way of this guy who, yeah, it looks like, if you look at that image, it just looks completely ridiculous, but you go, oh, okay, I get it. So that was interesting, and whatever, fire off what you think about these Iron Man 2 and possibly 3 premises that have come out, and go, yeah, maybe there is hope for Iron Man 2, just the way that I wasn't really feeling Ledger. Maybe there's hope with the right guidance there for that, and maybe they're not going to do this, but what do you guys think? So fire off.